like to welcome our speaker for the day, Manan Singh, the founder of Young Minds. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Manan.
Likewise, ma'am. It is a pleasure.
For the sake of the audience, I'd like to give a little introduction about Manan Singh. Manan Singh is the founder of Young Minds, as I told you, and Young Minds is a youth-led organization working towards enabling youth as agents of social change for their local communities. He's a final year student at the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities. He majors in history and is passionate about public policy and social impact. As a child of the development sector, Manan has been volunteering since early childhood. Along with being a certified youth educator, he has also been part of fellowship programs like the Millennium Fellowship 2023, Peace Gong Fellowship 2024, and Empowerment for Education 2024. As a student of JSLH and JGU, he has worked in various capacities and has received the Spirit of JSLH Award in 2023 and 2024. Along with his work experience at Niti Aayog and at the Office of Member of Parliament, he has been published on platforms like Opinion Express and The Denouncement and has presented research papers at various conferences like the Policy Conflicts 2024 by Christ University. Manan's work has been recognized both nationally and internationally, and he has been invited for podcasts and sessions by organizations from across the world. Without further ado, let me open the floor and have Manan Singh talk today on what drives his passion and his organization. Over to you, Manan. Thank you. Just a quick housekeeping announcement. If the audience has any questions, you could put it in the chat. Manan will be able to pause and respond to it, or he might take your questions collectively at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that extremely kind introduction that you gave. And hello to everyone present in the audience. It is indeed a pleasure to be able to take this workshop at the RISE PICO World Summit 2025. And this workshop will encapsulate how youth can be leaders. And so the title of the workshop in itself says Enabling Youth Leadership and Collaborating to Make an Impact. So that is what my journey has been, and I'll begin by sharing a little about what I do, what my work involves, and then I'll dive deeper into the conversations that we have. So as ma'am spoke about Young Minds is an initiative that I founded last year, and Young Minds works towards enabling youth as agents of change for their local communities. We work on two major projects, Young Minds Dream, where we work with 8th grade government school students on their capacity building and personal growth and career guidance, and through a curriculum that we have actually created on our own, and it's an 8-session module that we work on. And Young Minds Speak is a community of budding young change makers from across India, and it's a platform for young people who wish to begin their initiatives to receive mentorship from experts, and as well as it becomes a platform for them to collaborate, exchange ideas, and learn from each other. So that is what we do. And we recently also organized the Young Minds Changemakers Summit 2024 in partnership with and at the OP Jindal Global University, with the idea to lead solution-centered conversations. So the reason behind sharing Young Minds, a bit about Young Minds, was actually that through Young Minds, we are actually trying to work on the two aspects of this workshop as well, youth leadership and collaboration. That is why I wanted to give a little brief about what we are actually doing so that you get an idea, and in case anyone wishes to join in can also reach out and join in. All right, now I'll dive deeper into the conversation for today. However, before doing that, what I want or what I would like to do is to understand from where people are joining us and what backgrounds do they have. So if you could maybe share the city or country you are joining us from, and in a line, if you could share if you are a working professional or if you are a student, if you could write that down in the chat section. Let's begin with that so that we can have an interactive session, know each other a little, and we can mold also the session accordingly. So please feel free to use the chat section to share about where you are from. If you have an introduction ready, feel free to write the introduction down. Would love to interact. I'll wait for a minute or two and then you can, and then move forward. All right, thank you for the responses, and we'll move forward with that. So let me give you an overview of what I intend to do in today's workshop and how I wish to take it forward. So we'll begin by understanding why do we actually speak about youth leadership and why youth leadership actually becomes important in today's world. Then we'll come down to how young people can work towards creating an impact, and what kind of maybe what kind of things should they keep in mind actually while they are within their planning stage. So for anyone who is in their planning stage, who is wanting to begin their social impact initiative, or is in the has already formed a social impact initiative and is wanting to understand what they want to do with it further, how to expand it, etc. So that is what we will do in the second part, and that is what we'll actually cover majorly. And in the third part, we'll talk about the importance of collaboration and why collaboration becomes important, especially in the social impact space. All the three aspects may have a couple of things being repeated because all of them are interrelated, have interrelated themes, and have concepts which may be very similar to each other. But what I'll try, so there are no jargons that I'll be using throughout the presentation. I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. Briefly, I will display a presentation too, just to skim through a couple of slides. We will not give a lot of attention on slides. We will try to have as much conversation as possible. And there are a couple of slides which I will also skip in that process, just and so that however, so that we are sticking on the topic. But in case if you want to have a deeper conversation on the topics which I just skimmed through, or the topics which I have not covered in detail, feel free to reach out, and I'll also be dropping down my contact details so that I'll just do that actually. So I'll just drop down my email ID if in case anyone wants to reach out, and I'll drop down my website link so you can reach out to me through that as well. This is my email ID, and this is the website link. So anyone who's interested in talking more about any topics related to social impact, anyone who wants to have conversations regarding impact and the topics we covered today, feel free to reach out. And with this, I would like to begin with the first part of the workshop today, which I've titled as why youth is important. And if I have to summarize this entire topic into a sentence, I would say the sheer number of the youth present today. As a student of history, I would say, or history itself says it very evidently, that we are living in times with the highest number of young people present on the planet ever, right? And that in itself is a testament of the change youth can bring. And I feel that is why youth leadership in present day becomes very, very essential. But before I actually talk more about youth leadership, let me also elaborate on what I mean by youth leadership. When I use the term youth leadership, I am not trying to say that that young people should be at all the all the important positions on all the decision making tables, and all the roles should be filled by young people. That is not the claim I'm trying to make. The claim I'm trying to make is that young people themselves should take the responsibility and take leadership in their own ways. And that is the term when I use agents of change for the local communities, because when you bring a change even at home, even in your local communities, that is also a leadership you have taken, right? So yes, it is important for youth to have representation at the most important places where decisions are taken, be it the UN, in India's context, the parliament, judiciary, everywhere else. And that representation is essential because youth need to put their perspectives on the table and those perspectives need to be considered. But while that is happening and that takes its due process, it is important that the youth takes leadership in their own way, right? And coming back to the historical examples that I use, even when we study the freedom struggle of India in the most at the most surface level, actually, there are so many youth leaders who took up charge, did not wait for someone to give them an opportunity. They were people who wanted to bring in change. They saw that there is an area that they want to impact and they worked towards it. And the role of elders in that process as well, and that is what I demand for today, that is what I advocate for, is that people who are experienced should not become a hindrance in the path of youth, rather become mentors, right? Just in the way how a Chandrasekhar Azad was a mentor to a Bhagat Singh, just in the way how a Lala Lajpat Rai was a mentor to a Mahatma Gandhi, right? So how these mentors have played such an important role in not only building these young leaders into national figures, but also helping them build a very strong foundation and not repeat from the mistakes they made in their own times, right? So it becomes very important for mentorship to exist for young people, because as much as I talk about youth leadership, there is one thing I also, and any young person would accept, that we do fall short on the experience in the number of years of experience category, actually, right? We do not have that much, we are not lived on this planet for as many years as our elders have, and we surely can learn so much from them so that we are to make better impact. We are able to make better impact on the field along with their mentorship and along with collaborating amongst ourselves as young people, right? And coming back to the number itself and the collaboration point which I just mentioned, that the sheer number that we exist in, imagine if even half of us end up collaborating, and not directly collaborating, but with the vision that all of us want to make an impact and begin to make an impact in our own ways. Imagine the change that we can drive, and imagine how youth leadership can bring uh, impact in the lives of not only people around us but also change how this planet would look like, right? And we have so many advantages with ourselves. We have the advantage of knowing technology better. we have the advantage of energy and youthfulness. We have the advantage of number of age, that we are young. We will live on this planet longer than anyone, and longer than people who might not have the advantages which I previously mentioned of understanding technology and the energy, and have the energy that we have, right? So at this age, at the age of 16, 17, 18, why I say 16, 17, 18, because the National Youth Policy, at least of India, says 15 to 29 as the age of the youth. It varies from place to place. There are places which would consider youth, a person youth, in the category of youth between the ages of 18 to 25. Africa goes up to Africa goes up to 15 to 34, but that is, but the age not being the category. What I'm trying to share here is that we are in the right age bracket to be able to begin our journeys as leaders and lead for a longer period. And that is what I want to bring on the floor today, and that is what I wish to propose, right? And as I talk about that, and which brings me to the second part of the workshop today, is to talk about, you all of you would be saying that, oh, Manan is talking about we should make change, build change. Should it be through organizations? Should all of us create our own organizations? How should this change actually come? How should leadership actually happen? And I'll take you back to how I started. I started by saying that you can even make change in the lives of people around you. That is one way of making change, right? You in your own community, in your own neighborhood, can decide that you want to do weekly plantations. You can pick a spot, plant trees. You as a community or as a neighborhood can decide that we will not use plastic. So change starts small, and it starts from home. It starts from the self. And something that I have realized in my journey working in the space is that change is intergenerational and change takes time, right? And when I say that, what I mean by saying that change is intergenerational is that there are a lot of things that were not in the vocabulary or in the dictionary of our parents and our elders. Climate change as a buzzword as it exists today did not exist maybe 30 years ago. The problem of climate change that we are witnessing around ourselves is much more severe, and has a lot of more conversations happening around it in the times we live in than there were conversations about it 30 years ago, right? So the idea being that you work at your own local level, you are able to work in the capacity where you bring in change at home. Just give me a minute. I'm sorry for the background noise. Yeah, I'm sorry. There was a power cut actually. I had to shift. I'm very sorry for that. Uh, and I had to change my network. That is why I switched off the video. Yeah, coming back to what I was talking about, that change has to start at home and from the self, right? So you need to bring these conversations into mainstream, and you can obviously start at your own, in your own capacity, by taking leadership in the smallest manner possible. And leadership and community and neighborhood is one example. The other example that I can share is school, right? You can try and make your school as a sustainable campus. Decide that you would not use single use plastic in your school. Your stationery you will try to make as sustainable as possible. I realize that pen, papers, all of that are part of the curriculum, and that will have to exist, but you will try to avoid as much wastage. You will have segregated dustbins, right? So that in itself is a leadership that young people can take, and it's not necessary to create organizations essentially. But let me also come to the part where people uh, might want to create their own organizations and might want to bring in change through their organizations, and by bringing in a lot of people together so that uh, they are able to take a cause forward, right? And to begin with an organization, it becomes very important to understand what niche do you want to work in, because all organizations that you see around the world have a niche. The niche essentially does not change even in the long term. With the change in time, there might be a need, and if the need insists upon bringing a change in the niche you are working on, an example that I have on the top of my head is Paytm. Paytm did not exist in the way it does today, but because the time it was in wanted that change, wanted or forced that kind of a change, and the organization saw an opportunity and it capitalized. So in such kind of an environment, obviously you may change your niche, but I will talk about how to find your niche, how to pick your niche, and why is it important, and what components does it involve, and how can you actually end up planning a project. Just allow me to share my screen, and I'll take you through a quick presentation. Can you please confirm if my screen is visible? Can someone please confirm in the chat section if my screen is visible? Okay, just give me a minute. Is it visible now? Yes, okay, that's great. All right. So the presentation that I have today, and as I said in the beginning itself, that I will skip through certain parts of it and I will take you to the parts which I want to focus on. And the topic we have for today is how to pick your niche, right? Let me and obviously the first thing I'm going to skip is my introduction because we have already gone through that. Uh, Sorry for that. Yeah. So I'll skip through my introduction, though my contact number, email ID, and personal website are mentioned. So if someone wants to maybe quickly take a picture of it, feel free to do that or take a note. I've already mentioned both the things in the chat section, so you can take it from there as well. The next thing is the agenda. So we will be covering certain parts of it. We will talk about who is a social worker. We'll talk about know your why. Why is the niche actually important? We'll skip the strategic planning and why is it needed parts of it. We'll talk about how to plan, a few tools one can use to plan, and then we'll talk about understanding ourselves, 5 key strategic choices, and self-care. We'll try to be as quick with it and I'll take you through the presentation. So just by seeing the image itself, would anyone like to take a wild guess on the idea that what is the difference between social service and social work? Is there anyone who would like to put it in the chat section? What do you understand by social service and social work, and how do you think the two are different? All right. Meanwhile, you are writing and sharing. I'll also quickly talk about the borderline difference between social service and social work. So, for example, you go out, you decide. That's actually, in a certain sense, a good guess. But yes, that's actually a good guess. But it's slightly different from how you have put it, but very close. Shilpa says charity is equal to social service, free of cost, sponsorship. Yes, again, very close. There and thereabouts, I would say. So, social service, as most of you have articulated, may be a one-time thing, right? So, as you say, free and paid, if I change it to one-time commitment and long-term commitment, right, which involves, so social service, I would say, doesn't, in a personal context, you are free from any kind of a liability or any kind of ownership and responsibility. However, when you are talking about social work, it is it is way more serious, right? And it is actually uh, a profession. There is an entire degree called uh, a master. There is a bachelor's in social work. There is a master's in social work, right? So it's a professional. Actually a profession. Social service, in the retrospect, or how social service actually is different from social work, is that, for example, I today plan that I want to distribute blankets, or if I plan that I want to put up, for example, I want to give food to people for a day outside my house, and I will be cooking inside my kitchen. I will put up a stall, and for a day I will serve food. That is great. That is also a community action that you take. That is also a way in which you help the community. But that is a one time thing that you have done. That is a service to the society that you have done. You found a person who met with an accident on the street, helped them. You are not a first aid expert, or you are not. You do not become a social worker with that, by doing that. It's a social act of service you did to the society. It's social service that you have done. Social work has to be more continuous. It has to it demands more commitment, and it's way more serious than just social service. Social but this does not mean that I undermine either. I am not saying that one needs to give 12 hours a day for social work and doing social service is actually a waste of time. No, both of them are important and actually help in bringing a change in the community, and actually help people around ourselves whom we are trying to support and provide anything with. Very well put, Vijay Kumar. I'll also just read out the response you have put in the chat section. So Vijay says that social service means actions like charity, while social work is to empower the concerned to solve their problems in a more systematic, professional manner in a way. Very well put. And that is actually, in a paragraph, if you were to summarize the difference between social service and work, that is exactly how one can do it, the way Vijay Kumar has put it in the chat section. When we move forward, and when we now, if we have decided that we want to work in the social impact space, and we want to do something which is a little more than just social service, the first thing before actually even entering the field, and there are a couple of things that we need to do actually, and that all of those we'll discuss. But the first thing that one should do is to understand who they are. So whenever you're trying to, whenever you try ideating a project, before doing that, ask a question to yourself: who am I? And in that who am I, you need to take care of at least four of these things, and there can be more. First is your background. With your background, I mean your educational background, your financial background, the kind of upbringing you come from, the kind of environment you live in, the community you are part of, the societies you are part of, and that brings me to the next part of it. The privilege you have had, and that what actually motivates you to do, because a lot of people end up doing social service initially and also consider it as social impact because they think that okay, we are earning a certain amount, we have privilege, and let's do something for the society. That is very important, and that is a great initiative people take. But what I talked about here is that if you are planning to make your own organization, before even bringing in a team for it, it is very important to understand who you are and what your privilege is, what your values are, and what experiences do you have had in your life, and what experiences actually frame your mindset, frame the ideologies that you have, so that you understand yourself better and your biases better actually, and why do you particularly want to work, and that actually will help you understand why you particularly want to work in a field, what motivates you to work for climate and not for education, or for gender and not for climate, or for education and not for the either of the two, right? So your background, your values, experiences, and privilege are actually the four components which will help you understand yourself better and introspect the areas you want to work in and why you want to work for a particular thing. And once you have done that part of it and you have understood why do you want whom you are, the next question you are to ask yourself is why social impact, and why do I want to do this, why am I doing what I'm doing? Am I doing it to solve a problem? Am I really passionate about something and I want to bring the change in it? I want to maybe plant 1 lakh trees in the next 1 year because maybe someone I know was, maybe I'll take an example of Delhi actually. I'll not try to uh, create hypothetical scenarios. So pollution is a problem we see in Delhi, and a lot of people suffer due to pollution. Data exists which talks about how many people actually suffer through diseases because of air pollution in Delhi. There are people I know of who have started their own climate initiatives just because someone they know uh, suffers through a disease caused because of air pollution. So air pollution was a problem that was very close to them. That was an experience they had. It was a problem very close to them, and they wanted to solve it. So their why was that they wanted to solve a problem, right? Or along with that, their why was also something that I mentioned as a third point, is that I'm inspired by a personal experience. So they were inspired by and inspired in a sense that they did not want anyone else to face the same problem. That is why I ended up starting their own climate initiative. The next point that one can have or the next response one can have for a why is that I have a mission, I have a vision, and I want to work on it, right? Or a lot of people can also do it just for the sake of a CV, to put it on their resumes because they want to apply for foreign education, they want to apply to colleges, they want to apply for awards maybe. So that also is a reason for a lot of people to start their own initiatives. But it's important to know that why you are starting your initiative, even if it's for your CV. And personally, not a bit. I would not say that just do it for the CV, because then you are not involved as much into the impact work as much as trying to play the number game just for your CV. But even if you started it because of your CV and ended up being passionate about it and continued it, why not? So even if someone starts by the thought that I want to do it just for my CV, do it, because you might continue it even after you have joined the college, because you start to resonate with the cause you are working for and become passionate about it. So never hesitate saying, oh, I just want to do it for my CV, so I should not do it. Give it a shot. Next part of it, I would say, is I want to do something good. Someone might not be very clear about what they want to do. They just might want to do something good and want to start an initiative, right? It looks fun. I want to be like someone, because you are inspired by maybe Malala, by Kailash Satyarthi, seeing that they won the Nobel Prize. You want to be like them. You want to be in their place someday, and that is why you want to start your initiative. Oh, or it can be a response that, oh, I need it for my college applications, as I said. So CV and college applications similar, and so that can be a why. But all these whys, and again many more responses to a why you want to start your initiative. But what I want to say is, know your why, understand why you want to start it, and that foundational understanding is very, very important, so that when you are working for a cause, you intrinsically know that why you are doing it. Moving forward, now we talk about how important, or why is it important to actually have your niche. And when I talk about when I use the word niche, I mean a focus area of intervention that you want to work in. It may be healthcare, it may be climate, it may be gender equality, it can be anything. And the words I'm using right now are also very broad. It comes down, you further narrow it down actually. So when I talk about working on capacity building and career guidance, I focus it down further when I say that I work with 8th grade government school students. So the broader terminology can be SDG 4 and quality education. But when I narrow it down, I would say I work on capacity building, career guidance, and personal growth of 8th grade government school students. So that is how narrow you end up going, and that is how you pick your niche. But why is it important? And I'll take the clockwise direction. So helps you in planning your activities and projects. It helps you, it guides your team and gives them clear boundaries. So it actually puts you in a frame, and you know that these are the set of activities and tasks I have to do, and these are some things that I am are not in my framework. This is something that is important to be, that needs to be done, but I don't choose to do it, because there are so many problems all of us know of. But once you are working in the social impact sector, something that we need to be very cautious of is to understand that we cannot solve all the problems. And even the problem that we have picked, we might be able to solve a certain aspect of it, might be able to solve it for a particular community, and might not be able to, or may not be able to end up solve it for the entire world. But even a drop in the ocean contributes to change. So never hesitate from being the drop. The third point, and the third reason for why picking a niche is important, is that it embodies your passion. That why do you want to do what you want to do? Fourthly, it empowers you to focus, so you are not deviating from your thoughts. You are focused into the work you want to do. Fifthly, helps you understand the parameters of your work. Again, gives you a boundary, gives you a set of framework, gives a set of framework to you, so that you work within the parameters. And lastly, prevents a common problem of mission creep. Mission creep is where you are unplanned, unsure of what your goal or mission is, so that you keep stumbling upon a lot of things, and trying to do a lot of things here and there, but are not focused about what you want to do. So prevents, when you have picked a niche, it actually prevents you from the common problem of a mission creep. Moving forward, what are the components of a niche? So a niche is firstly defining your positioning. Defining your positioning means where you are located, where you are settled, what do you what locality do you want to actually, by locality I mean what area do you want to particularly work in, right? So that is how you position yourself. So this is the sector I want to work in, this is the kind of population I want to work with, and you position yourself, you give yourself a setting, right? It is like creating on a piece of paper a drawing of where you see yourself. Second point would be that you showcase your distinction, that there are a lot of projects working around on a lot of problems, but how are you distinct? What is the different problem? Or and a difference or a distinction can be as simple as that there is this problem that exists in my locality as well, but no one is working on it here. There is someone working on it in Nigeria, but not in my locality or not in India. That is also a distinction in itself. So when I say that I work with 8th grade government school students in India, there are a lot of projects that are running not only in India but around the world on education, career guidance, and capacity building. But my distinction is the population I work with is 8th grade government school students in India, right? So that is how I position myself and I show my distinction. Thirdly, is your strengths inform your niche. So you keep actually a list of your strengths. You keep in mind what are you good at. And when I say you, when you start building an organization, the you is actually, and I'll be using the word you for the organization or the initiative. The fourth aspect of a niche is the capacity, that in to what level are you able to, or are you equipped with being able to work in that particular area, right? So you cannot, if you are not a certified doctor, you cannot claim to be able to cure everyone who is sick in a locality, right? So you should be aware of your capacity, and that is a very important component of picking your niche, right? Fifthly is geographical setting and reach. So similarly, as we spoke about in the positioning part, you need to be very aware of your geographical setting and how much do you want to reach. And sixthly, something you want to keep in mind while you are picking your niche, that your theory of change may not be the same as your niche, right? The two might not be the same, and you to understand more about it, you can actually read a lot of detailed articles. But if I have to summarize it in the shortest manner possible, I would say your theory of change can particularly also your theory of change can be that you want to reform education systems, right? Or that change happens in order to bring in a change, you would have to reform the entire education system, right? But your niche might be very different. You might be working on a more narrow aspect, and then the work you are doing gradually ends up becoming a document or an example for the world, and might be able to become a policy suggestion. But your theory of change may become very different from what your actual niche is, right? Moving forward, so now when we talk about picking a niche, it is also important to understand what strategy do you take and why is it actually important to have a strategy. And this is an anecdote I thoroughly enjoy, is that if you are to go from your home to maybe a beach, though I don't live close to a beach, but I still like this example, is that when you are at your home, you know where you are. So that is where your car is placed, or that is where you are placed. And the strategy is the path you take to reach the destination or the goal, right? So in order to achieve any goal or to reach any destination, it's very important to have a strategy. And that is in the simplest manner, I would like to explain why having the strategy is important. and it has two components: provides prioritized methods to achieve the goal of the organization, and gives directions and coherence to actions and decisions. Right. So that is what, in the most simplest manner, I would is what strategy means, and that is how I would like to put it forward. That we should always have a strategy, and that is the next aspect of picking the niche. And once you have picked the niche, you now need to have a strategy to reach that goal. Because you picked the niche, you have decided of a problem, you have a goal in mind, but now how do you reach it? So that is where strategy becomes important, and you need to build an entire strategy. Strategies do change because of circumstances that might arise. It is similar to how on a road you might have speed breakers, you might have to take turns, but you need to have at least a concrete initial plan. You need to be prepared with a certain set of strategic pointers in your mind to able to reach the goal you want to, and to reach the destination that you actually have to. So I'm not talking about a lot about strategic planning because you have covered parts of it previously, and I don't want to delve deeper into the conversations on strategic planning in this presentation today, because we are focusing on why youth leadership is important, and how can they collaborate to lead change. So I will move towards what do you need to create a plan and how to design a plan actually. So before actually I start this part of it, and meanwhile I speak the first part of it, that what you need to create a plan, can people who are there in the audience share in the chat section if any one of you are working currently on any social impact projects or intend to work on a social impact project? While I'm speaking, please feel free to write that in the chat section. And there is a reason why I'm asking that, because that then I'll come to that part of it in the second part of this slide. So what do you need to create a plan? First thing you need is a mission. Second thing you need is a vision. Thirdly, you need values. And once you have these three, you need strategic analysis. So you need to understand the problem thoroughly. You need to strategically analyze the situation you are working in. And so you need, if I go back to the road analogy, sorry, you need to think about the climatic conditions. You need to think about that are your is your suspension good? Are your tires aligned? Do they have the adequate air that they require? Do you have is your car fueled? Do you have petrol? Do you have the necessary things that you need for travel? So you need to have a strategic analysis of the situation, of the circumstances, of the geography you are part of the problem that you are trying to cater to, so that you are able to create a more concrete plan and work towards it in a more dedicated and focused way. Though I'm still waiting for responses in the chat, so please do share. And lastly, what is important to create a plan is your organization's environment. So you need to be sure of how your organization is, what kind of people do it involve, what expertise do each one of you have, what are your weaknesses, something that is included in the SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that is also a good way to understand your organization's strengths and your individual strengths and weaknesses. But that brings me to the next part of this slide, which is how to design a plan. And what a quick activity that I actually want to do with the people in the audience, that in case if there are people who are working on a project or intend to work on a project and have a thing in mind, I would request you to kindly make a smart statement for your initiative, or let me actually float a problem statement. So imagine a hypothetical situation. Imagine you are in a locality where the AQI is very bad, and you are living in, and this locality has a lot of senior citizens. So they are, they, there is a higher possibility of them facing severe health uh, issues because of the HUI. What steps would you take, and how would you do it is one aspect of it. But what I want you to do right now is to create a smart statement. So find a solution to this problem that I've just calculated. And a smart statement is actually specific, measurable, acceptable, realistic, and time bound. So a sentence that includes these uh, five components is what we call a smart statement. So this is a great way to actually have a plan or design a plan, because once you have your goals ready and you have your strategies in mind, is then what you will be able to lead yourself to the objectives and summarize them within one statement, which we will call a smart statement. So now, taking the same problem that I just circulated, my goal is to ensure that people in the neighborhood that I'm living in, and considering that these are senior citizens, the air quality should be better so that they don't face the health issues that they may because of the poor AQI. Now, what strategies? So, if I were to ideate strategies individually or with a team, what I can think of is I can say that okay, there was this person in Delhi who made their entire house into a greenhouse, and their AQI is 4 at their house, right? And there are certain things that I know, that plantation uh, increase in plantation will reduce the will it reduce the pollution in the area and will bring the AQI down. What I know is that I have to reduce burning any carbon emissions in the area. Plastic waste essentially does not need to be are to be avoided. What I know of is that waste should be segregated, right? So there are certain things that I know of, and these are the strategies. Just hypothetically, if I keep in my mind, I can say that what I would do in order to solve the problem that I have in hand is that in the next 6 months, I will plant over 1,000 trees in my locality to bring the AQI down from, considering again, because this is a hypothetical scenario, uh, bring the AQI to ensure that the AQI comes down from 300 to between 200 to 220, so that the people in the surrounding areas do not face the health issues, right? So it's a very specific statement. It's measurable because you are measuring that the AQI in the next 6 months has come down from 300 to 200 to 220. It's acceptable because it's a change that has happened in the past. It can be done. It's realistic because there is research that supports ways to do it, and it's time bound because I've used 6 months, right? So the smart statement is actually a great way to design your plan and to have all components for both a short term intervention and a long term intervention. Moving ahead, we will talk about how do you understand yourself. And as I was saying initially, that when I use the word yourself now, I would use it for a team. And just the way you ask yourself a couple of questions about who you are, now you need to understand yourself as a team. And the question that you will have to ask in that case is that whom do you exist or to serve, and whom does this organization wish to serve? That is the first question you will have to ask and respond to. The second question that you will have to ask yourself is, if they knew what you could offer and with theirs, that the people you are trying to serve, and what would they ask you to do, so that their lives would be changed in the long term, right? So when you are trying to work in a particular community, there are two kinds of there are two ways in which a person, there are two mindsets in which a person enters the field, right? A lot of times people enters with a certain set of assumptions, and that's not a great thing to do. That is why strategic planning and analysis is important, and it includes a lot of aspects of research, so that you actually are catering to the audience you are working with and trying to solve the problem that the people actually think is a problem. There are a lot of times we presume that this may be a problem for a community, but there might be more important things that they want to be changed in their lives, or the problem that we, because of our experiences, values, or our positioning, our backgrounds, think is actually a problem, might not be a problem for the community we are trying to work with. So it's very important to understand that what change do the people you are working with want to see, and you as a team or you as an organization try to bring that change and try to help the people in the way they want to be helped. Next, the question that you would have to ask yourself is, what are the most deeply and what are you most deeply passionate about, and what is the vision, right? So as a team, you will have to understand what are you all most passionate about, and what is the vision of the organization. Next, you would ask yourself that what are the unique strengths of your organization, and what can you do best compared to others, and what is your calling, right? It's very important to understand your intrinsic calling, that what is the actual change you want to see, what is the difference you want to see in the environment. I know of a person, again taking the example from Delhi. There is someone I know who runs an initiative, who personally was not very pleased with the usage of single use plastic. Their calling was that this single use plastic should not be used, and I need to find an alternative for this. And now they run an organization where they recycle newspapers to make carry bags, give them around the locality so that these carry bags can be used instead of single use plastic. So your impact needs to resonate your calling and your organization's calling, and you need to understand the strengths. So their strength was that they were able to work with different schools, work with a large amount of young people, so that these bags can be made, and bags can be made on a regular basis. And they also tried to understand that what they could do better compared to others. So they understood their strengths. They knew where they were better. They may have had a network in schools, because all of them at that point were in schools. They knew that they could reach out to their own school administration and start from their own very school. And that again brings me back to how I started, that change starts at home and change starts from within. So you need to understand your strengths and what you can do, and you need to understand your calling. And lastly, what you will have to keep in mind as an organization is what drives your resources, both human and financial. Very important for sustaining any organization, that what is actually the driving force behind your resources. And these are the last two slides of the presentation. And this slide is actually an important one, very important to understand these 5 strategic choices. First being that, do you want to make a little impact on a large population, or do you want to have a more focused and more in focus is the best word actually, or you want to have a more focused intervention with less number of people. The second thing that you would like to understand is that, do you want to treat the symptoms, or do you want to actually reach understand the cause and try to treat the cause of the problem or the niche that you have actually picked. Thirdly is that, do you want to actually provide any kind of services, or do you just want to campaign for change or just do advocacy? Fourthly, you will have to understand that, do you want to stay focused, or do you want to diversify your services? And lastly, you will have to understand that do you wish to hold your beliefs, or will you get tempted by opportunities or resources that you might have might encounter in the future, and you might get tempted and change what you were initially doing. And the best thing about these 5 key strategies is that they are not black and white. There is always a gray area, and you surely can work in those gray areas as well. And this is actually something that I say to anyone who is working in the social impact sector. And with this, I will end my presentation and quickly cover the collaboration aspect of it, of today's workshop. Is that uh, when you work in a space as demanding and as rigorous as the social impact space, um, you are going to have compassion fatigue. You are there will be instances where you will be tired, right? And this is a statement which I keep telling myself as well, that your work is a part of your life and not the only thing in your life. Focus on self-care and take care of yourself because a sector like this can be really taxing. And the example also that I try to use to explain this in a better way is that when you have a mobile phone, yeah, it's visible. So a mobile phone also, when continuously being used, gets heated and needs to be charged. A car being driven for a long time needs to be rested for a while, needs to be refueled. So rest and self-care is also that refueling of the human body, because to give the best output that you can as a young leader, it's very important that you are in the best shape possible. And for that, it's very important to take care of yourself. And that was a component I wanted to focus on when I said that I want to work, that in the first part of the session I want to take in youth leadership and how can youth leaders emerge, right? Enabling youth leadership. So in the first two parts of today's workshop, we spoke about why youth leadership is important and how in two different ways, one without organization and second through organizations, can youth actually lead change. And now we'll come to the third and last aspect of today's workshop, which is collaboration, and why is collaboration actually important to create an impact. So I would like to begin this segment with actually a math example. And don't worry, I'm not making any one of you do any kind of math here. But the example that I will take is from our childhood math books, where we used to encounter this problem statement or problem question, where we were asked if two people make a building in 5 days, how many days will it take for 5 people to make the building? And oftentimes, or actually every time, the answer used to be lesser days. So the more people that collaboratively work on a particular task end up reaching the goal quickly, right? So that is the essence of collaboration, and that is the power of collaboration. And why I find it very important for the social impact sector, and why I feel that's essential for this space for people to collaborate in this space, is that our goal is common. It is actually one of the only sectors where we are not competing with each other, but what we are trying to do is to make this planet a better place to live in. And with that idea in mind, all these organizations and all individuals that are working in the social impact space are working towards a similar or a common goal. And that is in itself the power of social impact. And if people end up collaborating, this power will be multiplied. And imagine the impact that this power of people working together can create. But now this was an overview of why it's important. Let me also delve slightly deeper into what I mean by collaboration here. And it will bring me back also to certain aspects of the previous conversations that we have had, especially the mission creep. So for example, I work on, and I'll take back to my example, I work on education. However, if I want to talk about gender equality, it may A, not be my expertise. B, there might be organizations that may be doing exemplary work in the space of gender equity, and they might be able to take a session better than I can. Or they, even if they are not going down in the school where I'm working at, they can help me with the resource material. Similarly, there may be people who are working in climate. If I want to work in the climate space, I will have to start from scratch, right? I will have to begin understanding the problem for the area. I will have to understand what resources are required, and the entire process of planning, designing, strategic analysis, all of that needs to be done, which an organization has already done, right? So if I collaborate with this organization, it reduces the time that I spend on repeating actually the entire process that an organization has already done, and it brings in more resources, it brings in more minds, and it enhances the impact that we want to make. So that is the reason why I repeatedly focus on collaboration in this space. And within the community also, I see that within the Young Minds Speak community, or when we were doing the Young Minds Changemaker Summit, the conversations that we had, there is so much interconnectedness between each space, each sector, each segment of the social impact space, that collaboration actually makes work easier. It makes tasks easier, and it helps you reach the common goals quicker and in a more uh, sharing manner, in a more collaborating fashion, where you are joining hands and moving forward rather than trying to do everything and not being able to focus on one single aspect. Excuse me. So when you are collaborating, you are able to focus on your work, you and the other person is focusing on theirs. However, you are working together to help each other, to share ideas, share knowledge, share resources, um, share communities that you are part of, and build impact together, right? And with that, I would like to actually close this in long monologue of mine and open the floor to questions if there are any, and would love to respond to them. That and this was my take on, or my workshop on, enabling youth as leaders and the importance of collaboration to make an impact. Thank you very much.